day, he had no idea what was harmful and what was okay to eat. He ate what tasted good and got to yet another shelter, this time believing it would become his tomb. Over the next couple of the outback and were looking in his direction, and they saw him. And when they went over to him, they said he looked like a walking skeleton, and Ricky practically collapsed as soon as he saw help had finally arrived. Police about the three men who attacked him, they were never caught, and fell to the bottom of an ice cliff and shattered his leg. Initially, they both assumed this was a death sentence for Joe, because there's no all 300 feet of snow, and when he would stop, Joe at the other end would all these snow ice picks, and then Simon would climb down to Joe, and he'd repeat the process over and over and over again, lowering Joe 300 feet at a time. This went on for hours and hours and hours, just back-breaking work for Simon, and Joe, meanwhile, is in excruciating pain from his broken leg. And to make matters worse, the storm had gotten so bad that the visibility of the edge, but now Simon is the only thing holding Joe from tumbling to his death, and Simon is moving in the air. And so as Simon tries to move the rope to try to signal to Joe to take your weight off the rope, Joe is trying to climb up the rope, but his hands are starting to get frostbite. He opened his eyes, he looked around, and he couldn't believe he was alive. And he's looking around, and he laid down and eventually fell asleep. The next morning when he got up, he began moving his way down the mountain, and he finally rounded the area where Joe had been hanging off of that cliff. And he never heard anything from Joe, and with a heavy heart, Simon turned around and started heading back to base camp. A little while after Simon had left, Joe finally woke up. He had been asleep when Simon was yelling down for him, and he realized once he got through that point, it was like the center of an hourglass where he couldn't believe it. But after the initial relief of not dying wore off, he realized he was not out of the woods yet, and Joe and Simon survived and held each other. Joe underwent 6 surgical operations to repair the damage done to his leg, and doctors would tell him that you're never going to climb again, and you're probably going to struggle with walking for the rest of your life. But after 2 years of intense rehabilitation, Joe was not only walking just fine, but mountain climbing. As for Simon, he managed to leave the mountain without any serious physical injury, but he carried with him an enormous sense of guilt that he still carries today. Joe consistently says Simon made the right decision. In every interview he does, he always makes sure to say, Simon is not at fault, it was an impossible situation, he made the right call. Joe wrote a book about the experience called Touching the Void, and it sold millions of copies worldwide, and has since been adapted into a major motion picture. As for Joe and Simon, apparently they drifted